Hello, everybody. Hi.
Hi.
I'm Gaurav Tripathi, CEO and co-founder at superpro.ai. Very warm welcome to all of you. Yes, you have seen me here in Pro Talk, but yes, this is something different. So this is something what we are doing in collaboration with a wonderful company and a wonderful gentleman. I'll introduce him just a short while. But yes, this is uh, what started as an experiment at SuperPro, and since the phenomenal response that we got to our Pro Talk, we realized that yes, this is something which can be done or can be taken over in by others. And this kind of a talk show format, I think, can be beneficial for other businesses. And that's where I'm happy to share that Shantanu, who is on the call, yes, here, Shantanu Saha, the founder of the Recruiters, he said that yes, this can be a wonderful way to engage um, people who are interested to learn around HR. And since Shantanu has already been bringing in, I should say, the who's who of HR experts in India, at least on the recruiters. He's already got so many experts on the recruiters, and he's continuously getting more and more. So that's where he said this can be a really good idea to bring these experts and feature them here, which of course benefits the recruiters as well, benefits the experts themselves, and benefits the community as a whole. So yes, this is the first episode, the first of the Recruiters show. Yes, I know the name is very simple. The Recruiters is the company, the business, the and Shantanu Saha is the brain behind it. And this show is the purpose is I will let Shantanu introduce in detail. So with that, I won't be the blocker anymore. Over to you, Shantanu.
Thank you so much, Gaurav, for that wonderful introduction. Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to the Recruiter Show, Episode 1. This is the first episode of the series that we will bring to you of HR experts covering various subdomains of HR like OD, training, compensation, POSH, psychometric assessments, etc. And these experts, whether individuals or companies, are available for booking on a platform developed jointly by us with the help of superpro.ai. You can find them on the experts page of our website, therecruiters.net. And today we'll have with us Mr. Sidharath Tuli. I think he's got some connection trouble. He needs retrying. Meanwhile, let me just introduce him to our guests. Siddharth is a certified leadership coach, a behavioral skills facilitator, and a certified organizational development consultant. A Chevening scholar, he has done his post-graduation in management studies from BITS Pilani and advanced studies from Kellogg Business School, US. He has a certification in organizational development from NTL USA and leadership certification from CFL USA. A person with many paths, curious, passionate, as well as a keen learner. He is the founder and CEO of People Sculptors, a company devoted to enhancing individual performance and supporting teams to achieve their full potential. His diverse list of clients include large MNCs, public limited companies, and NGOs. He has been on the panel of facilitators with Aon, DDI, and Harvard Business Publishing, a subsidiary of Harvard Business School. Siddharth has worked in leadership positions for major Indian and multinational organizations like Unilever, Reckitt Benckiser, L&T, and Heidelberg Cement. Before I hand over to Siddharth, I would like the guests to put out the questions in the chat box, and we will try to cover them during the show or towards the end. And with that, I hand it over to you, Siddharth. I am glad you are back. If you can tell us what made you start People Sculptors, your firm.
Okay, thank you, Shantanu, for the nice introduction. Um, I started People Sculptors about 5 years back. And I had, as you've read out from my introduction, I had worked in a lot of organizations at leadership levels. And for the last, few years of my job in the corporate world, I had been feeling this itch to do something on my own. And I was not enjoying uh, that work so much. And I then some events happened with me in the professional life that triggered that transition. It was always in my mind, but due to these, they snowballed, and I took the decision to go on my own and pursue my life's calling. And I started this organization called People Sculptors, where we help people and teams realize their full potential. So now I am trying to scale my second mountain. I'm not sure if I scaled the first mountain fully, but for sure I am now trying to climb my
So tell me, Siddharth, what is so unique about the consulting approach that you bring to the table?
so my approach is very holistic. I take a systems view of the organization, and then I rely heavily on data to diagnose problems, and then I try and use a collaborative approach to problem solving. I do believe that the the problems that organizations face are systemic, okay, and they are interlinked. So I try and blend a lot of practices. For example, I am a leadership coach. As you said, I specialize in organization development. So I draw upon organization development principles, plus even behavioral facilitation skills, in terms of blending them into a holistic kind of a stream, and then apply all this to the problems that organizations present to me.
Okay. So could you give us some glimpses of the work that you've done in the area of behavioral skills?
Okay, as I said, I do three things. So I do behavioral skills facilitation, both online and offline. And online has of late picked up compared to the classroom facilitation. And then I also do organization development work plus a bit of leadership coaching. So in terms of behavioral skills facilitation, I have a large repertoire of programs, which could range from self leadership to team building to personal effectiveness. So we cover a large repertoire. And these programs could range from a day, 2 day to 3 days, depending upon the need of the organization. But coming to your point, I think I would give an example of some of the programs I've been doing recently. I'm working with a large uh, refining and a petrochemical organization, okay? And they approached me and said that can we, and it was in March 2020, can we do some work around crisis management? Okay, we hadn't heard the word crisis. Now everybody is talking about crisis. Okay, and then I made a program, and we have been running this program uh, for the general managers down to their engineers, right, across the organization. So for the top leadership team, we call this program as leading in a crisis situation, and for the junior and the middle management, we call this program as managing in a crisis situation.
Before the COVID crisis, or it was like?
So it was no, it started after the lockdown. Okay, somewhere mid March we conceptualized it, and then started by end March. And the beauty about this program is that it's not a one-off program,
Hmm.
right? We have taken the entire organization through this program. It's very interactive. And more than my framework on crisis management, I think what has been helpful to the organization is that it has helped them build a narrative of what works in a crisis and what doesn't work in a crisis. And this is an organization which didn't even stop for an hour since the crisis started. So that's a very unique program and one of the programs, and we do several more. I'll stop here and
Is it something like an OD intervention in that sense? I mean, so behavioral skills translating to an OD intervention?
well, in a way it is, because for two reasons. One is it's very interactive, and now all the examples, most of the examples that I give to them, for example, the agility in communication, the speed of decision making, all those components which are helpful in a crisis, come out of the organization or what the organization has done. Okay, we give you a small anecdote. We were talking about caring in a crisis, right? In a crisis, what has become being talked about these days by a lot of people is that leaders need to show empathy and compassion, right? So there was one gentleman, a senior general manager, and he said that, and early April, and he said that during the crisis, my wife sat up the whole night and stitched about 100 masks, and I brought it to the organization and I distributed it to my team. Now, it was not that the organization was running out of PPEs or running out of masks, but it was a gesture.
Correct.
And then when I started giving this example in the sessions, and in one session, the one participant switched on the camera and he showed it to me. He says, "Look, this mask has been given to me by Mr. Kripal Singh." So that was kind of completing the loop, and I was very happy that some of these examples were resonating very well with the audience.
So, what do you think? I mean, is the potential for deploying OD and some issues that could be resolved with OD interventions in the organization?
So I just talked about behavioral skills. In terms of OD, I think I frankly think, Shantanu, OD is a bit underrated in our country. It is not picked up as much as it has done, let's say, in US or Canada. So there's an enormous scope. OD is a very holistic science. Okay, the application of behavioral science. It's a very holistic science. So I have applied OD to encourage collaboration in an organization.
So, for an person, would you want to sort of define what is OD and sort of, as in a layman term? Because if somebody who's a non-HR person doing this,
Hey, I was about to ask that.
Okay, that's a good one. Let me try and define it in simple terms.
Yeah.
So OD is a process which works to enhance the effectiveness of an organization through the use of behavioral science principles. So anywhere you want to enhance the organizational effectiveness, you want to change the culture of the organization, you want to work on your performance management systems, you want to work on your leadership development, you want to encourage collaboration in the organization. Okay, you want to enhance the engagement of people in the organization. So or restructuring or change management, for that matter. Change management is one of the biggest applications of organization development in organizations. And again, a kind of an underrated field in our country.
So can you briefly describe change management and a structured approach to change management?
Yeah, okay. So basically, what we are saying is that every organization is where it is because of change. Okay, in order to have a competitive advantage, you need to change quickly, right? And there is a truism which says change is the only constant. organizations which don't change ultimately die. And this is what Charles Darwin said many hundred years ago. It's in a different format. Okay, so but the problem is that and there's a very popular statistics which says that 70% of the change management efforts fail. And that's where I think there is a need to bring in consultants and who could take a more structured approach and anchor the change management initiatives properly in the organization. So the and they can fail for various reasons. John Cotter has written a seminal article which has appeared in Harvard Business Review and become very popular. And he says that change efforts could fail for various reasons: not establishing a sense of urgency, okay, not having a powerful leadership to drive it, not having a vision, not communicating the vision, or not anchoring the changes in the organizational culture. These could be many various reasons why change management efforts could fail. So it is important to kind of root them properly into the organizational culture, and that's why it becomes critical to manage them properly. And a skillfully managed change could do a lot of wonders, and then you could reap the benefits out of it.
So can you bring some context into change management, given the current circumstance? I mean, as I see it, yes, when you talk about change, yes, effectively the world has changed.
Exactly.
But from an organization's perspective, in the current context, yeah, where do you see really the change management? How it should be structured? How should organizations go about it?
So let me. So the approach to change management is very simple. It's a couple of steps. The first thing is trying to understand the compelling reason for change, then assessing the organizational readiness for change and the organizational capability for change, both the things. Okay, and there are tools to do it. And then you are envisioning the future, and then you are making the transition to the new state, and then sustaining the change. So this is Gaurav, in brief, the model for change. Now I and this could manifest in any of those things which I talked about. You could change the culture, you could make the organization more collaborative, or you can bring about change in helping an organization undergo a digital transformation. So let me give you an example of a project that I did on change management with the government of India. Uh, 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 One of the large software companies, global software companies, was implementing this project for the Ministry of Roads, which includes the ministry itself and NHAI, National Highway Authority of India, and the NHIDCL, which constructs roads in remote areas and in hilly areas of the country. So they were undergoing a digital transformation, which was being carried out by this global IT software company. And their scope was to introduce a new ERP system. They were on files, notings, and they were, on the legacy system, or they were wanting to transfer much of their thing to the cloud from their servers, and digitizing all the files. So it was a massive project, and it involved thousands and thousands of people. So they brought in people like us, and I was the consultant for facilitating change there, is making people understand why we are doing this change. And mind you, after the Ministry of Defense, the highest outlay of the government is on roads through Ministry of Roads. So it's a very critical ministry. And it's important that the funds and the decisions are utilized properly, and the decisions are taken with scrutiny and with speed. So my job was to go to people, why we are doing it, what is the compelling reason for us to do it, how it will benefit the organization, how it will benefit the country, because people sometimes need to relate to the larger purpose to it. And then we had very structured tools. We had some over 50 templates to assess the readiness of the change and assess the capability to change, which I talked about. And we were doing workshops with people. Then ultimately, later on, when the modules were established, training people and ensuring that this change, this digital transformation was introduced in the organization and sustained, so that the what was the net objective, Gaurav? The net objective was to ensure that the change establishes itself quickly. We don't waste time in addressing resistance to change. We gain the acceptability of the people so they hit the road running. We don't waste too much time, and that is a huge savings in terms of cost. If the organization takes 2 years to stabilize, with the change management, perhaps you can do it in a couple of months and save that kind of time, and enhance the productivity of the new system. So that was an example on change management, helping the people side of change in a digital transformation.
But Siddharth, in this COVID situation, a lot of organizations underwent change without being ready for it, right? So, like what you said is preparing an organization so that there's no resistance to change. Now, we did not have time for people to resist. People did not have an option but to change. So, if you look at future and when you look at disruption that is happening around, a lot of times things will come in either because of technology or because of external factors or whatever, the business environment. Like today, the economy is in recession. Now, that is a change which is there, and you have to remodel to survive. In a situation like that, what does the contribution of a change management or an OD consultant like you, where the organization is facing a crisis? Of course, it goes to crisis management, but there is a change which is required. And how do you help an organization in a situation like that when they have already, the situations around them have changed and they have to now adapt and sort of become competitive in such an environment? Do you think you would be able to assist such an organization?
Well, that's a brilliant question, Shantanu. And I have thought about it, okay? And, you know, there are, if you look at the COVID uh, for the last 8, 9 months, you have clearly defined the winners versus the losers, right? So the countries like South Korea, Japan, New Zealand, Taiwan, right?
Yeah.
These are the countries which have, even Australia, okay? These are the countries which have done phenomenally well, right? And then, of course, we have the classic example of the Brazils and the Americas, US, which have, you know, which had the potential. I mean, which had US incidentally had the best scientists, had the best epidemiologists,
Correct.
and some of the best doctors and the best talent available, and still they failed. So you have to examine that. That prompts the question: why some of the countries adopted to this change so well, and there was no medicine, right? Where was the medicine? There was no medicine. A vaccine had yet to come, but still some countries did better than the other. To my mind, and it's a great question that way, is that it related to these countries' ability to adapt to change. And there are three elements to change, as I would say.
Okay.
The first element is leadership. Okay. Do they believe in Trump, or does Trump himself believe that this is a serious enough problem? Because for early April, March, he was kept on saying, this is like a mild flu. It'll go away, right? And he was un- either in denial or undermining the situation. Whereas if you look at Korea, South Korea, or Taiwan, or even India to that extent,
Yeah.
they were quick to understand that we need to do something. So they set up testing, they set up tracing. So the leadership actively and proactively took a lot of steps.
Correct.
The second factor in changing in these countries was this thing, the trust in the government. Okay, if the government says something, the people believe it is true. Okay, the government is telling us to wear masks, we will wear masks without exception.
Correct.
Now that's not true for a country like ours. Okay, we are not a very disciplined lot. Okay, but in those countries, and many European countries too, Sweden, Finland, this is a huge kind of a trust which is there. And the second thing related to the trust is the culture of the country to follow the norms and to follow the instructions. So again, the biggest factor out of these, I would say, is the leadership.
Yeah.
And something interesting, by the way, had come up, that the countries which had women leaders,
Yeah.
okay, somehow, and I don't think an adequate scientific study has been made, but the anecdotal evidence suggests that the countries which were led by women ended up being more proactive, ended up better being able to manage COVID-19 than the rest. So that's the long answer to your short question. I think the factor of leadership and the trust in the government is very critical.
And do you think it's also resilience to some extent? Because to handle a crisis of this nature, the population in general should have probably, I mean, been subjected to continuous adversities over a period of time. So they take adversities in their stride and are more resilient. A country like US, which is a first world advanced country with little problems for a majority of the residents, and where the government is there to support, they don't expect something where they don't have a support, they don't have a solution, they don't have a treatment. So for them, for us, a majority of the people may not have access to healthcare. So for them, anyway, it is always any virus could be like a COVID virus with them not getting treated. Whereas, so they build resilience, they build probably even immunity to that extent, which is why I think in India we already see a lot of immunity among large sections, especially in the poorer sections of the society. So you think that's something, and do you use that when you are talking about organizations to build resilience?
Yeah. See, one of the factors which has been cited behind the success of the Southeast Asian countries, particularly, is that they had an experience of overcoming pandemics in the past, the SARS and the MARS kind of pandemics which had come to their countries, and they were better able to mobilize their resources. Okay, so to that extent, I think there was some learning which was put to good use. Okay, now in India also, in the southern states, we had this experience. And initially, you saw that some of the southern states like Kerala are doing exceptionally well. And that too, the health minister was a lady, by the way.
And she was awarded as well.
Yeah, so there is, you're right, there is that element. But 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 then why? But coming to your other point of resilience in the community, I mean, in Britain, in UK, we had so much of adversity. World War II, France, okay, Germany, okay, they were bombed out. Berlin was bombed out. Paris was bombed out. London was bombed out.
That's a
Okay,
different
so
generation.
they suffered. They have suffered a lot of,
A different generation altogether. So it's a
but it kind of carries, right? So, and India, I mean, which other country? We have cyclones, we have droughts, we have pestilence. So, only thing is that our fatality rate is low, our infection rate is not less. So, and God thank for it. So, I would say that to an extent, you are right that countries which had the experience of a pandemic tried to utilize it, and which we are seeing in Southeast Asian countries. But I don't know if I can generalize it. I don't have any data of research to say that this is by and large true. I mean, why then New Zealand is done so well? Again, my point comes to leadership. Okay, that it's a small country, easier to manage. No doubt about that. But let's not underestimate their efforts and what they have done.
okay. So what is the
So I have a
Yeah.
question here.
Yeah.
Sorry, Shantan.
yeah.
So this is so amazing that you spoke about. So that especially, I like the government of India example, because if you can make governments change, yes, that shows the the possibility that it's possible to do it. But at the same time, if OD is such a great intervention around that, yes, so important. why do we why don't we see in general a greater deployment of OD consultants or professionals in organizations?
Very good question. And I wish I knew the answer. Okay, I'm struggling. I, uh, you know what, Gaurav? All of us know exercising is good for us, and I train thousands of people on personal effectiveness, and I talked about managing your energy at various dimensions, and physical dimension is one of them. How many people, after getting inspired from my session, start exercising the next day? So sometimes we may know the benefits and still not overcome our laziness or our procrastination to do it. That's one point. The second one is that, and that is, I think, more, and I have struggled with this, okay? Because I tell people, you pay me only, okay, if you see the advantage that it brings to your organization.
Wow.
I am willing to, there is no risk, right? I'm willing to take a part of your organization, prove it to you that it has worked in this division, in this part of the country, in this department, and then you take it. But unfortunately, the people are so engrossed in day to day, and if I use a colloquial term, maramari. They're chasing profits, they're chasing working capital, they're chasing government regulation, they're chasing so many fires that for something as significant as this, which requires, that's the beauty about Gaurav, about OD, that it requires the commitment. I am only a facilitator.
Correct.
And the government change was partial. Why was it partial, Gaurav? Because we expected the government, if I may use the word bureaucrats, or the government leaders who were the bureaucrats, to lead this. But those people wanted us to lead it. That's not possible. A consultant can never be a leader. A consultant can only be a facilitator. He can tell you what are the things, what are the system, what is the process, but you have to inspire your masses. You don't expect us to stand on the podium and start inspiring people of why we should implement an ERP in NHAI. If your leader stands up and talks about it, that makes a completely different impact. So again is the issue of effectiveness in the government. So the issue is that I find that many Indian companies have still not caught on to it, that if we invest in it, we will get the results. And then, I mean, they're not, like, you are a startup, you're an entrepreneur, and they want, so you have to experiment with it sometimes. Okay, so somebody is telling you, and I give them the statistics that organizations which pay attention to human capital, are 40% more effective than the others. So there is a payback coming. There is numbers, there is profit, there is dollars or rupees at the end of the tunnel. But
Correct.
you should be willing to do it. So I think it has not yet caught up in the country. But if you look at some of the assignments that come on these platforms like GTG, etc., you find that there is a huge demand for OD people, for change management people, in the software industry and in the non-software industry as well.
In fact, to add to that, Siddharth, what I've noticed is that this, I think, especially startups, you gave that example, they tend to get caught up in what is urgent versus what is important. So that urgency may not be, in the long run, would actually be affecting them. It's like they don't invest in human resource, they won't invest in terms of probably processes which will help you in the long run, because they would hire people who would not be actually aware that, okay, I'm going to be evaluated at the end of a year, because they are not even seeing that 1 year ahead. They're seeing that, okay, when is the next funding coming, and then where do we go from there? This person is here for the immediate problem, and so they're not looking long term. Whereas, because when I set up my firm, I was an HR person, so I actually created systems and processes from day one. So everybody knew from the appointment letter itself that what is going to be my increment if this is the performance level, when will I get promoted? So I never have those questions from anybody saying, okay, why have I not been promoted? Because that performance is a ROI which is available on the board. It goes in the payslip every month, and when it crosses a certain number, they know they will automatically get a certain increment. They will know they will automatically get promoted at a certain district. So there's no question. You have good systems, and I tell them on the day they join, in fact, before they join. So those are some basic fundamentals that people implemented. I mean, of course, I come from an HR background, so for me, it's very easy to do it in my organization. But a lot of organizations and entrepreneurs, I've realized, just struggle, and they're pretty clueless also in a lot of these HR related.
Gaurav, that's my counter question to you: is that you have been an entrepreneur? I believe this is your second mountain again. Okay, so why do entrepreneurs? Because see, today a startup may be 10 people big, okay, but tomorrow it could have 1,000 people. The scale up can happen that rapidly.
True.
Why do entrepreneurs shy away from, as Shantanu says, doing this important task of embedding systems and processes, and 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 dare I say, establishing the culture of the organization? Because these starting founders, whatever they do or don't do, establishes the culture of the organization. So why is this a hesitation to, they put all their energies in funding and in growth and that kind of thing, but not even a fraction of that in ensuring that the institution is sustained? Why do you think that happens?
Great. My personal belief and experience, again, what I have seen and what even where I have made mistakes, and I see others doing the same. I think it's more to do because of I call it the rock star syndrome, which is in startup world at least, we tend to look at things, from perspective wherein it's again it close to just putting these rock stars, like it right from Steve Jobs, the kind of aura that got created around certain individuals. It kind of has led to this in startup world, that yeah, we just need rock stars, and if we have such individuals, things will automatically work. Yeah, and if we look at, this is what we read day in day out, be it in media, be it in all the fancy interviews, or even to a large extent now I've started seeing even in the research papers. Yes, it's the focus has been more on the successes, and those successes are often, which are talked about, are often around tied to an individual.
Yeah.
And that is where I see that that belief gets tilted, that no, it doesn't matter, the process and everything, it's fine, can be taken care of later. First we need these rock stars and things will work. I mean, that's what I personally see.
I think it's a brilliant point. Everybody is looking for Jeff Bezos and Steve Jobs, right?
Yes.
Right, but if you leave aside this supercharger, super aggressive aspect of a Steve Jobs or even of Jeff Bezos, but they are organization builders. Because you know look at the diversity which Amazon has. I mean, Apple doesn't even have a fraction of the diversity of Amazon. Okay, so and they have embedded the organization, for example Amazon, in in technology, in customer service, okay, and in mining the data to enhance the customer experience. Okay, so I think people are picking up the wrong learnings from Jeff Bezos.
True. Yeah.
Okay, and you know, I have a colleague who's the HR director of Amazon, and I've been wanting to check with her that why is it? I mean, what is the level of investment which goes into uh, people development or organizational development? I don't have an answer to that, but I would be surprised, Gaurav, if organizations like Apple or Amazon would have survived without solid organization development. I have very good case study on Microsoft. Okay, Satya Nadella had a very different style of management from Bill Gates, right? Bill Gates is doing a
True.
brilliant job now in his new avatar, okay? And very few billionaires are doing the kind of service for which he's doing. I have great respect for him. But but in many ways, Bill Gates was the same type as Jeff or Steve, right? He was very aggressive. He will tolerate no nonsense, and wasn't empathetic at all. Today, he's a picture of empathy and compassion, but in his heydays, he wasn't. He was aggressive. He was harsh. He was everything. But look at the transformation which Satya Nadella has brought out. He's talking about, he is the one, and there is a very beautiful case study on Microsoft, which has been done by the London School of Business. And they talk about this cultural transformation, which is nothing but OD. So the major cultural transformation has taken place in Microsoft, and today Microsoft is, after Satya Nadella has come in, is a much more successful organization. And the transformation is based on a few principles of compassion, empathy, growth mindset, and mindfulness. So what he is saying is that we need to be continuously working on improving ourselves by taking feedback, by looking at our potential, by deliberate practice. So this whole concept around the mindset, which again has been powered by one of the Harvard psychologists, Carol Dweck. Okay, so Carol Dweck, so he's based his cultural transformation on the pillars of mindset, empathy, and compassion. And he brings in the example from his own family. His one of his sons has got a problem, and how that built in him that sense of empathy. So if there are examples on that side of the spectrum, there are equally powerful examples, Shantanu and Gaurav, on this side of the spectrum, that this works. Okay, so
No, it definitely works. In fact, if you look at the history, again, even if you look at the India corporate history, the Tatas, for example, who built an organization which lasted more than 100 years, was built completely on practices which were the foundation of the HR laws of the country. So, but today, if you look at entrepreneurs and you look at startups, of course, the bust rate is very high. There are very few successes. And when I talk to, because I'm in the startup ecosystem as a part of Angel Network, and I also talk to some VC friends of mine. And I sometimes have approached them saying that, if you want assistance in terms of HR processes for the startups in your portfolio, we are there to help. And they said, startups just don't have the time for a human resource. They feel the money wise, they are tight, and HR is their last priority in terms of. So what is happening is they are focusing on, okay, where is my next funding coming? When I'm going to exit, I'm not looking that long term to create processes and systems. Let the next company, the big company that buys out, create the processes. For me, I have to create a product, scale it up, get the money. People come and go, it doesn't really matter. And that is exactly what is happening. I mean, for example, we are right now hiring for a organization in Bangalore. Now, they're doing a lot of interviews. And in one hand, again, that urgent and important difference, So the first round interview would have happened. The second round interview, the senior person always gets pulled into meetings. It keeps getting deferred until the person gets another offer and goes away. Then they restart the process. Now, they don't realize that the actual amount of time at the end of the day, nobody is calculating the time lost of the junior person, who's also a project head, and of the senior person who's a CTO, who's doing multiple rounds and doing it again and again. But they don't realize it. And nobody's doing an audit of that time. Nobody's doing the audit of the business lost. And I have been a part of a startup when I was in Daksha. And our founders were very, very clear that, and especially today, sometimes organizations will wait forever for a certain ideal person which they want to hire. But you have to run a business. If that is the market, and if you're a startup, everybody will not be interested in coming to you given all the constraints. So if you try 10 people and if you're still not satisfied, then something is wrong in the organization. And you have to either run the business or, so you have extremes where people will either be very fussy, then in terms of HR processes, they are immature. So you would have, and they would not take advice because these are the Jeff Bezos kind of people, so the rock stars, and rock stars don't listen to advice. So unless they themselves want proactive advice, they would be like, okay, fine, we'll make mistakes along the way, we'll learn. So, and if these things get corrected, I think a lot of these startups would be successful. is what, and I'm sure, Siddharth, if you talk to more startups as your clients, you will realize this. And that's why we didn't work too much with startups unless it was set up with somebody who had experience, a lot of corporate experience. Um, but that is the experience that we get.
And my little experience with startups, I was in this NASCOM committee, which was trying to help these startups. My experience has been that, if you don't invest time in setting up some of these processes right, and when the businesses grow up, then a lot of the time of these founders and these entrepreneurs gets gobbled up in resolving conflicts. Okay, because those turf wars start, and that has never been clearly defined, and the processes were not clearly defined. So a lot of time gets consumed instead of strategy, growth, development. It gets consumed in useless activities like two of their senior managers fighting with each other and resolving that.
Yes, yes. In fact, I mean, I wish somebody like you could do a study of what is the impact that intervention that you do, or effects in terms of the success of an organization, and the organizations which have no HR interventions, or and especially in the startup ecosystem, how many are going bust, and what was the reason behind them going bust. I'm sure there'll be data which will be telling, and that data itself could be a selling point. Like some things which are driven by law, still that also people are refusing to adopt. So something which is something which is people know, it's like health, it's like exercise, which people know is good for the organization, but they would not do it, and sometimes they don't even know. So that ways. So,
yeah, I agree. I agree. It's my challenge is how to reach them. Okay, and maybe you can help me. I am not going to charge them anything. I just want an audience with them to kind of explain to them that, look, these are the two scenarios. Okay, in one scenario, the benefit is going to come to you after a long time. Okay, in the other scenario, there is a loss. So you do a cost benefit analysis for yourself and then come to a decision. Don't go by what thing, just listen to me. And I'm sure all these guys are brilliant guys. Okay, they come from the best of the academic institutes of a country, so they're smart. But I think how to get into them,
into rock stars. No, that's the problem.
They're rock stars. And if they get it, like Bill Gates got it, okay, if they or let's say Satya Nadella got it, then they can transform the industry and the organization.
I think it's that IQ versus EQ thing. So it's the
That's a good one. Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right.
That's the thing. So now, Sidharth, you do a lot of these facilitation nowadays. You said you do online versus the classroom. So how do you rate the effectiveness of an online program versus an offline program?
Well, I was with Harvard, etc. I was doing a few online programs. Okay, but then I was doing that for people in another country. Okay. Southeast Asia, Indonesia. So they were there. So I was not flying there, and I was doing the programs there. And I sort of understood that, this is the limitation I've got. But post-COVID, I have been forced to do this program. And I just ran one program last week. I ran a program last week with India's leading public transportation company with their young engineers who were being promoted as managers. So they were in their early 30s or late 20s. And I did this program with them over 2 days, starting at 9 o'clock till 5:30 in the evening. And they came back to me with mails after mails that it's unbelievable the potential of an online program, because today, and I use WebEx. Okay, I use WebEx. So I'm giving my example from which platform I use. So I could break them into breakout groups. Okay, I could go to each breakout group. They could write down on a piece of paper, on a PPT, whatever they were doing in their breakout groups. I ran mini case studies with them, and I then did polling with them. Now, sometimes polling you can't even do in a classroom session.
Yeah.
So, and annotations on the whiteboard is just as effective as a whiteboard in a class. In fact, it is better because you can wipe it out, and you can digitally edit it and quickly annotate it, and so many things on the slide. You can annotate, and you can bring in the video seamlessly into what you want to be doing. So, except that you are not feeling and touching those people, I think the technology today allows you to come very, very close to the physical experience. I won't say that it has substituted it, but I think it's a great uh, uh, change, and a very viable alternative, because it has reduced costs,
Yes.
right?
But
It
how
has
do you
reduced.
maintain the
People have to hire hotels and get people. Now people sit at their homes and do it. Sometimes bandwidth, there are technical issues which let's keep them aside. But if you have a laptop, and I don't allow anybody to do it on the mobile. Okay, so if you have a laptop, then the experience is very close, and in some things even better. The only thing you
Wow.
require is the discipline that people don't put on their laptop and start doing something else. For
Yes.
that, I would even blame the facilitator. The facilitator has to be so engaging
yeah.
and has to continuously chat and keep on asking people. So that's a skill which you have to develop, of continuously keeping people on their toes,
Yeah.
and keeping the session engaged. In fact, it is much, much more difficult
That's
to
what I'm saying.
do
So do you
a
reduce the time?
proper online session than an offline. Sorry?
So do you reduce the time of the session now? So I'm considering,
Yes.
at the span of
I have, but I have done, I mean, I was doing a classroom session with them from 9 to 5. I did the same here.
Oh,
Okay. But in other organizations, I have condensed it to a couple of hours. So both models work. Both models work. In the long model, you have to ensure that you are skilled enough to hold the attention of people for the whole day. Now,
yeah.
that can become, that fatigue, that screen fatigue can set in.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all,
But,
everybody's
but,
afraid.
but I think the advances in technology are just too good.
And something like a webinar where people come and go, like we've seen here. So there also, there could be, some audience, unless it's a compulsory program which you're doing in an organization, you have to attend. People will come and go. Like we do these programs for IMA, All India Management Association. We've seen a lot of people out of 300, 400, it, dips to 200 and suddenly like that. So that's one challenge which is there.
Yeah. I did a session with the IIT Kharagpur, the Vinod Gupta School of Management. Okay, all the MBA students, and I did a condensed version of 90 minutes, and 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 they were enthralled, because when I was asking them questions, I was breathless in terms of keeping up with their speed, which the questions were coming on the chat box. Okay, so there I had over 150 participants at one point in time. Okay, so the technology allows you to reach out to 500 people, 1,000 people also, and they were all at their homes. They were not at IIT Kharagpur. So it is possible, and I think it is here to stay. Much of
Yeah.
the coaching, even the OD work, to an extent, and behavioral facilitation will shift online. There is no doubt about that.
Correct. So now, Sidharth, we're coming to almost the end of the session, webinar, and one of the last questions that I would want to ask you is that how has your entrepreneurial journey been? I mean, you were a head of HR in very large organizations, and so how was
right? Gaurav is smiling, okay, and so are you. You are, both of you are entrepreneurs, okay. It would be, I'd be dishonest to say that it has been a smooth ride. It has been a very tough journey, extremely tough, but tougher for me because I cannot, go after people and continuously pleading to them. I send them one mail, I I try to talk them on telephone. I try to reach them out once or twice, but never thrice. So I mean, some people say that's not the best way to do business development, but that's me, because I would rather be pulled by the power of my delivery than by my personal relationships in
I think
making
that's a
the
problem
HR
with
head
HR
happy.
folks. Siddharth, that's HR folks are not built to be BD people. And I mean, I was lucky that I started very early in my career. I started the business, so it sort of developed from there, and I got clients in the initial stages. But I know it is not a forte which HR people come with, to be aggressive BD people. That's what.
No, but the Shantanu, I would be happy if they quiz me, okay?
Hmm.
Sit with me for half an hour and assess my depth, okay? And then take a call of accepting or rejecting me. I
Correct,
will be happy if that happens.
correct, correct,
They're
correct.
always busy and they wear that busyness as a tag on their, coats or shirts. Okay, saab bahut busy hai. Okay, so
Yeah.
but it's been a very tough journey, but very fulfilling, very fulfilling, and I have no regrets about it. I am really enjoying it, and every day it passes. Reinforces my belief that I took the right decision. Otherwise, I would have always regretted that I did not do what my heart wanted me to say and follow my calling.
That's great.
Great, great.
Absolutely great. So, with this, Gaurav and Siddharth, thank you so much. And I am so happy with this first episode to get Siddharth of the Recruiter Show. And what I'm planning to do is, of course, get in more people on the experts page of the recruiters so that we create an ecosystem of all HR professionals, almost every possible stream. We already have people from the labor laws, from Bosch, from organizational behavior, organizational psychologists, psychometric assessments, compensation, background verification, everything is there. We are trying to get in more from the expatriate taxation, ESOPs, and all others. And I would want to create an ecosystem where it's a one-stop shop for anybody who has any HR issue to reach out to somebody. And from that, every fortnight, I hope to bring in an expert here in the further episodes of the Recruiter Show and present them to the audience and sort of engage with something which is useful. And I would want the people who interact with these webinars that we host. And later, of course, this will be on YouTube and LinkedIn, so people can put in their questions and we can put them on to the expert who is there and we can pass them on. We put the connection, the link on which the expert can be reached out to. In fact, today also I posted on LinkedIn and I've given the link where Sidharath Tuli can be booked. And you can go to the experts page on our website and book Mr. Tuli. And I'm really thankful to SuperPro for creating such an amazing product, which has transformed the landscape in that sense for professionals, where you are easily, in fact, especially professionals who do not have technology available readily, to sort of reach out with such a wonderful technology which is homegrown in India, a company promoted by bright entrepreneurs from IIT like Gaurav and his co-founders. And there's a lot, I'm sure today. Siddharth also gave you some examples from WebEx, what he did in terms of breakout rooms, and I'm sure Gaurav, you were taking notes if you already don't have.
Oh, we already have, yeah.
I know. You have, I think, huge things in the pipeline, and I'm
Yes.
looking forward to that. We hope to, grow together in this journey. And Siddharth, you were so interesting, and I'm sure we will get you back again because you have so much of wealth of information and knowledge that I'm sure one session cannot do justice. Today, we just took on change management only. Next time, probably we can talk on leadership coaching or one specific thing which you would want to. And with that, Gaurav, you want to say something to close the session?
Thanks a lot, Shantanu, for all the nice words, great words, really. And thanks to you, Siddharth, for joining us on this first show. It's really personally for me, I learned a few things definitely, and I see, yes, where we can use bits and pieces of that. And this is where I think this is going to be helpful um, for a lot of startups specifically, because I think one thing which is lacking is just the awareness of it itself, right?
Yes.
So one thing is that okay, it's everything comes around to the just two words: human resources, HR, and then say like, oh yeah, HR will do. But then people don't even know what all does it include.
Correct.
Most often, people will just associate HR with recruitment. That's it. While it's not true.
Not at all.
I
Not
have
at all.
yeah, I have learned it myself the hard way that yes, why it is important and what all goes there, and this is why I feel like through this wonderful platform that Shantanu is pulling off with the recruiters and the experts that are going to be part of the ecosystem. I think the least that is going to happen, which I see, is at least the startups and a lot of other businesses will just come to know, oh, this is all is there in the gamut of HR. It's not just about recruitment.
Yes.
So
Yeah, there's a whole lot. I mean, and I'm sure.
Right. I think there's a enormous. It's a sea of ocean by itself.
Yeah.
We've just dipped our toes.
Yeah. No.
Right.
We'll swim in the ocean and sort of surf with
Right.
it. So all the best to.
Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Shantanu. Thank you, Gaurav.
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Okay.
Javier. Have a great day. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye. See you.